Hi folks, it's Mike Murphy, and today's quick tip is in Adobe After Effects CC 2025. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to modify the LoopOut expressions to control the number of keyframes that get looped or repeated at the end of the animation. The default LoopOut cycle expression is going to loop your entire animation endlessly forever and ever. But in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can modify it if maybe you only want it to loop or repeat between the last 2 keyframes or between the last 3 keyframes. So to animate the logo, I'm just going to drag it to the top left corner, which is where I want the animation to start. I'll drag the CGI to the beginning of the timeline. I'll select the logo layer and tap P to reveal the position property. I'll click on the stopwatch next to position to add a keyframe. I'll move the CTI forward in time. I'm just going to go to the 1 second mark. I'll click on the logo. I'll hold the shift key to make sure it stays in a straight line. And I'm just going to drag it to the top right corner. I'll go to that last keyframe and move forward in time by 1 second. I'm going to click, drag down, holding the shift key to the bottom right corner. Move forward in time, another second. Click and drag, holding the shift key. So move the CTI forward in time. Click and drag up to that last point where we started. Tap the spacebar to preview the animation, and when the CTI reaches the last keyframe, the logo animation stops. So if I want the logo to just keep repeating over and over again around this rectangle, well, I could copy and paste the keyframes all the way down the timeline, but the easy way is to add the LoopOut expression. I'm going to press the Option or Alt key, then click on the stopwatch next to the position property. I'll type out LoopOut, lowercase l OOP, capital O UT, open and close parentheses, then open and close double quotation marks. In between the quotation marks, you can type out the word cycle, or you'll see After Effects is suggesting these available LoopOut expressions. I'm just using the up and down arrow keys to go through the menu. I'll select cycle, tap enter or return. I'll tap the right arrow keys to get out of the expression. I'll put a semicolon at the end of the expression for best practice. And now when I tap the spacebar to preview the animation, instead of stopping at that last keyframe, you'll see because of the LoopOut cycle expression, it's just going to endlessly repeat or loop everything between the first and last keyframes forever and ever. And to modify the LoopOut expression so you can control how many keyframes are being looped at the end of the animation, well, all you have to do, just click inside the expression. I'll tap the right and left arrow keys to move the cursor. I'm just going to place the cursor to the right of that double quotation mark after cycle. I'll put a comma. Then I'm just going to type the number 1. That number 1 is telling the expression when the CTI reaches the last keyframe, instead of repeating or looping all of the keyframes, just go back 1 keyframe. So go back 1 keyframe from the last keyframe, and then just loop that section. So this keyframe to this keyframe is going to loop over and over again. And you can see when I go past that last keyframe, that's exactly what's happening. So with the CTI on the last keyframe, if I move it 1 keyframe and enter 1, that's telling the expression to loop everything 1 keyframe back to the last keyframe over and over. If I move it to the second keyframe, all I have to do is change this to 2. And now, if I drag it to the beginning, it's going to play through the entire animation, but when it reaches the last keyframe, instead of looping all the keyframes, it's going to go back 2 keyframes from the last and just repeat that section over and over again. And you guessed it, 1, 2, 3. If I type in 3, now it's just going to go through the entire animation. If I start at the beginning, but when it reaches the last keyframe, it's going to go 3 keyframes back and just loop that section over and over again. And you can add the modifier to any of the LoopOut or loop-in expressions, so you're not limited to cycle. So if I change cycle to my favorite, pingpong, I'll remove the modifier just so you can see it. It's going to play through the entire animation. It's going to go in the reverse direction, so it's just ping-ponging back and forth. Now if I want the ping-pong to happen from this point and just repeat this part back and forth, same thing. I'll just click in the expression, put my cursor to the right of the double quotes, put a comma, put the number 2. I'll drag the CTI to the beginning, tap the spacebar. It's going to play through the entire animation. It'll go in reversed, and it's just going to ping pong between these two right here. That's saying start at this keyframe, move back 1. Now when I tap the spacebar at the beginning, it's going to go through the entire animation, and it's just going to ping pong back and forth between this section. And that is how to control the number of keyframes being repeated in the looping expressions of Adobe After Effects CC 2025. My name is Mike Murphy. Cheers.